My name is Margaret Whitfield, and I was born in Melbourne in 1952. At 72, I'm sitting in my restored garden, finally ready to share a story that nearly destroyed me. This is about what happened when my own son tried to steal my life from under me, and how I fought back. If you're listening, and you know an elderly person who might be vulnerable, please pay attention. This story could save someone you love. The taxi pulled away from my front gate on that crisp autumn morning in 2023, leaving me standing on the cobblestone path with my suitcase and a heart full of anticipation. I'd just returned from 2 wonderful weeks in Tasmania, my first real holiday in years, and I was eager to see how my son Oliver and his wife Claire were settling into my house. They'd moved in temporarily after losing their rental, and at 71, I'd felt generous, motherly even. What grandmother wouldn't want to help her family in their time of need? I practically skipped up to my front door, fishing out my keys before remembering the smart lock Sophie had installed for Christmas. My granddaughter, bless her heart, always worried about me living alone. I pressed my thumb to the scanner and punched in my code 0425, Sophie's birthday. The lock beeped once, twice, then flashed red. Access denied, the mechanical voice announced. I laughed, thinking the battery might be low. Technology, right? I tried again, more carefully this time. Same result. Oliver! I called out, knocking on my own front door. Claire, I'm home. Silence. Their car wasn't in the driveway. But that didn't mean anything. They often walked to the local shops. I tried the back door, only to discover it had also been fitted with a smart lock during my absence. One I'd never authorized. My spare key hiding spot under the garden gnome was empty. As evening approached, I sat in my car in my own driveway, bewildered and increasingly worried. Where were they? Had something happened? I called Oliver's mobile repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. Claire's phone did the same. By 9 o'clock, exhaustion had overtaken confusion. I reclined my driver's seat and pulled my travel blanket around me, staring at the house I'd called home for 37 years. I spent that cold night locked out of my own life. The next morning, my neighbor Patricia knocked on my car window. Margaret, what on earth are you doing out here? Her concerned face peered through the condensation on the glass, and I felt my carefully maintained composure finally crumble. I can't get into my house, I whispered, the words feeling surreal as they left my mouth. The locks have been changed. Patricia's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. Come inside, love. Let's sort this out. Over tea in her familiar kitchen, she revealed what I'd been too trusting to see. Oliver came by yesterday morning with some official-looking papers, she said gently. He said he was handling your affairs now that you'd given him power of attorney. He seemed different, Margaret. Colder. My blood turned to ice. I never signed any power of attorney. He also mentioned something about your bank accounts needing proper management while you were away. Said you'd agreed to it before your trip. With shaking fingers, I called my bank. The automated system confirmed my worst fears. My accounts had been frozen, accessible only to the designated power of attorney holder. Oliver had somehow gained control of everything. My money, my house, my entire life. How is this possible? I asked the bank representative, my voice barely steady. According to our records, Mrs. Whitfield, you signed the documents in person 3 weeks ago. Your son provided proper identification and witnesses. But 3 weeks ago, I'd been planning my Tasmania trip, choosing which books to pack for vacation, not signing away my independence. Someone had forged my signature, used my identity, stolen my autonomy while I was innocently preparing for what I thought would be a peaceful holiday. I called Sophie immediately. Grandma Maggie. I'm coming over right now, my granddaughter said, her voice cracking when I explained the situation. This is fraud, plain and simple. Within an hour, Sophie arrived with her laptop and a fierce determination I'd never seen before. We're going to fix this, she declared, already researching elder abuse laws. First, we're calling Helen Morrison. Then we're documenting everything. Helen had been my solicitor for 15 years, handling my will and property transfers. Her voice was grave when I explained the situation. Margaret, this is unfortunately more common than you'd think. Adult children sometimes believe they're entitled to their parents' assets, especially when they're struggling financially. But forging power of attorney documents is serious fraud. What can I do? First, we revoke any unauthorized power of attorney immediately. I'll file an emergency application today. Second, we contact the police. This is identity theft and fraud. Third, we get you back into your house. It's still legally yours until proven otherwise. That afternoon, accompanied by Sophie, Helen, and 2 police officers, I returned to my front door. Oliver's car was in the driveway now. When he answered the door, his face went pale seeing our small army. "Mum, what's all this about?" he asked, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "It's about you stealing from your own mother," Sophie said sharply. The police officer stepped forward. "Sir, we need to discuss some documents allegedly signed by Mrs. Whitfield. We also need to verify the legal occupancy of this residence." Oliver's composure cracked. "Look, Mum needed help managing things. She's getting older." "I never signed anything," I interrupted, finding my voice at last. "You forged my signature, changed my locks, and stole my money while I was on holiday." Claire appeared behind Oliver, her face flushed. "We were protecting your assets, Margaret. You're too trusting, too vulnerable." The word ignited something fierce inside me. I raised 4 children, taught school for 40 years, bought and maintained this house, and managed my finances perfectly well until you decided I was incompetent. I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. The legal proceedings moved swiftly once Helen filed the emergency applications. Within 48 hours, I had temporary access to my accounts and a court order requiring Oliver and Claire to find alternative accommodation while the matter was resolved. But the real battle was just beginning. "Margaret, I need you to understand something," Helen explained during our strategy meeting. "This isn't just about getting your house back. This is about proving your mental competency and your right to make your own decisions. Oliver's defense will likely claim he was protecting you from yourself." The thought made my stomach churn. How can he claim that when I was perfectly fine managing everything before they moved in? Because desperation makes people justify terrible things, Sophie said, squeezing my hand. "But we have evidence on our side." Over the following weeks, I discovered the full extent of their betrayal. They'd not only forged a power of attorney but had also attempted to refinance my house, claiming I needed funds for medical care I'd never required. They'd contacted my doctor, my bank, even my insurance company, painting a picture of a confused elderly woman who could no longer manage her affairs. The most painful revelation came when I found emails Oliver had sent to various family members, describing me as increasingly forgetful and making dangerous financial decisions. He'd been building a case for months, preparing everyone for the narrative that I was no longer competent. "The manipulation is textbook," explained Dr. Sarah Chen, the psychologist Helen recommended for my competency evaluation. "Adult children sometimes convince themselves they're acting in their parents' best interests while actually serving their own needs. Your son likely believed his own story." The evaluation itself was thorough but affirming. Dr. Chen tested my memory, decision-making abilities, and financial understanding. "Mrs. Whitfield, you're sharper than many people half your age," she concluded. "There's absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline or impaired judgment." Meanwhile, my former student Caleb Henderson, now a successful property lawyer, had heard about my situation through the local teaching community. "Mrs. Whitfield, you taught me year 10 English 20 years ago," he said when he called. "You helped me believe I could achieve anything. Let me return the favor." Caleb's expertise proved invaluable. He discovered that Oliver and Claire had been systematically undermining my reputation in the community, telling neighbors and local businesses that I was declining rapidly, and that they were stepping in to help. "They were preparing the ground," Caleb explained, "making it seem reasonable when they took control of your affairs." The court hearing was scheduled for a gray Tuesday morning in November. I dressed carefully in my navy suit, the one I'd worn to parent-teacher conferences for decades, and walked into that courtroom with my head held high. Oliver and Claire sat across the aisle with their lawyer, refusing to meet my eyes. The man who had once been my little boy, who I'd held through countless nightmares and celebrated through every achievement, was now a stranger willing to destroy me for money. The judge, Honorable Patricia Walsh, reviewed the evidence methodically. The forged documents, the competency evaluation, the financial records showing my accounts had been managed responsibly for decades. When Oliver's lawyer tried to argue that his client had acted out of genuine concern for his aging mother, Judge Walsh's expression hardened. "Mr. Whitfield," she said, addressing Oliver directly, "you systematically undermined your mother's reputation, forged legal documents, and stole her autonomy. There is no evidence whatsoever that Mrs. Whitfield was incapable of managing her own affairs. She turned to me. "Mrs. Whitfield, I'm ordering the immediate restoration of all your assets and property rights. The power of attorney documents are declared null and void. Furthermore, I'm granting a restraining order preventing Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield from contacting you or approaching your property." Oliver finally looked at me then, and I saw not remorse but resentment in his eyes. It took months to undo the damage Oliver and Claire had done. They'd run up debts in my name, damaged relationships with my bank and insurance company, and created a paper trail suggesting I was incompetent. But slowly, methodically, Sophie and I rebuilt my life. We changed all the locks. Real ones this time. Not smart technology I didn't fully trust. We reorganized my finances with additional safeguards. We documented everything for future protection. The house felt different when I finally moved back in. Not just because of the physical changes they'd made, but because the sanctuary I'd created over nearly 4 decades had been violated by the people I'd trusted most. Some of my neighbors apologized for believing Oliver's lies. Others still looked at me with suspicion, wondering if maybe there was some truth to his claims about my declining mental state. "You know what the hardest part is?" I told Sophie one evening as we sat in my restored garden, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. "What, Grandma?" "I keep thinking about the little boy I raised. The one who used to bring me drawings from school and tell me about his dreams. I don't know when he became someone who could look me in the eye and steal from me." Sophie squeezed my hand. "Maybe he never existed the way you thought he did." Oliver and Claire moved to Queensland shortly after the court ruling. I heard through family gossip that they'd declared bankruptcy within 6 months. Apparently, they'd been counting on my assets to solve their financial problems. I felt no satisfaction in their misfortune, only a deep sadness for what we'd all lost. At 72, I've learned that family isn't defined by blood alone. Sophie visits twice a week now, and my former student Caleb stops by regularly to check on me. Patricia next door has become one of my closest friends. These are the people who make up my real family. The ones who see my worth beyond my bank account. I'm sharing this story because elder abuse is more common than anyone wants to admit. If you know someone elderly and vulnerable, please pay attention. Watch for sudden changes in their living situation, unexplained financial transactions, or family members who suddenly become very involved in their affairs. And if you're an older person reading this, remember you have the right to take up space in your own home. You have the right to make your own decisions. You have the right to say no even to family, especially to family. My name is Margaret Whitfield, and I'm still here, still fighting, still refusing to